I don't really know where to begin with this one. Okay, so this is personal and a little bit weird, and I for a topic like this, if it were in real life, back in the olden days, um, I would have selected not just the person I'm talking to, the people I'm talking to. I would select the environment, and I would have the kind of peripheral unintended audience, like the room, in mind. So it's the kind of thing where it, it's one thing to talk about it with friends, and it's another thing to talk about certain things in mixed company, right? So friends and then the new guy. And it's another thing to be in like a semi private space. And depending on that place, there is an expansion of kind of the comfort, the possibilities for a particular kind of conversation. And this is the kind of one where it's hard to talk about, and I would I think it's something that ought to be thought about, and it wouldn't be something that I would talk about in a coffee shop of that I wasn't a regular in, like that we weren't, me and whomever I'm talking with weren't regulars in. So it's that kind of place where it will be, it's kind of, it's friends, but the topic isn't friendly as such. And it's not one of these opening up necessarily kinds of things that I want to talk about, but it's in the realm of being, it's personal, not just for me, but it's personal for everyone. And so I want to say that this is something like an adult content warning, but it's kind of not. It's like mature audiences only, and some adults aren't mature. And you, the problem with putting up little flags like that is, a lot of the times a somebody who's curious can just ignore that and continue on. The thing is, you can ignore this and carry on at your peril, because I'm going to be stumbling through some stuff, and I try to not exactly be a, what's the term, a bull in a china shop. Um, but I'm also not going to dance too much around. So I want to talk about small versus tall, really. And this is something that I surprised someone with, sharing a perspective, kind of a perspective that he didn't had never considered. And I think a lot of people don't consider it. So I'm gonna start with the end that is obvious and probably going to be really offensive to a lot of people. Okay, so women like tall guys. It's not exactly true. It's not exactly true, because we can talk in like averages and preferences and things like that, but it's in, let's say, the English as a first, or as an available language cultures. Um, for those people, it's it's not shocking in the least when a woman describes a certain kind of guy that she's attracted to. And extremely frequently it will be, oh, he needs to be 8 foot tall, and needs to be this, and needs to be this, and whatever other attributes you want to go through, you can go through, and you'll actually be really uncomfortably accurate. And it's not even, you look at statistics or any of this stuff. You don't even need to be cold about it. You just go, you Ask all the women you know. You know, what do you like? What do you like in a guy? And women love dreaming, and they're completely unrealistic, which is why guys are insane and do what they can to be better than the best that's ever been. Rarely, very rarely, they succeed and they pull all of humanity up with them. And those guys still don't get all the ladies because, I mean, they're insane. They're working so hard. And as it turns out, the women who want that also don't want the insane workaholic. Anyway, so women have some preferences. And guys know that. Like, really know that. And I was talking with this one guy, and we were talking. I don't even know why we got it, but it's like one of those things where you meet certain people, and they get comfortable enough that they wanna talk about certain things. And I I didn't know, this is the first time I'd met him, and we were specifically in an environment, and we were specifically prompted to talk. There was a vetting process already that was in place, friends of friends kind of thing. So it's like, this guy's smart, this guy's smart. We need to talk smart. We just cut through all the crap. Don't need to do any of that other stuff. No dancing, and just like real talk. And I don't know why, but he ended up talking about this thing. It's fairly personal to him, which is, he's short and he's really self-conscious about it. And guys don't have to talk about this kind of thing, but it's always, women like this, women don't like this. So when we're thinking in terms of our self-esteem for our appearance, that is always what is understood. It's not like, oh, I'm short because I can't reach the top of the fridge. It's, I'm short, and women point that out, and my dating pool is reduced because of that, and I'm not happy about it, and there's nothing I can do about it, etc., etc. And so he wasn't whining, but he was kind of chatting about that topic, and I was already familiar with it because I've had, I mean, I'm old enough that I've had a bunch of friends and acquaintances and relatives, and just you chat with people, and I've already understood this perspective well, including having talked very specifically on this topic with friends. And you will look out into the world, and you will find really buff guys that are short, and that's why they work out. They can't do anything about their height, but they can sure as shit do something about their, what's the word for it? Girth, depth. And they're not unsuccessful at all. And maybe you can make the argument that maybe it starts and ends in the guy's head, where it's his poor self-esteem which makes him less successful with women because he doesn't want to chase after them, and he's frail. No, it's an actual fact in reality, on top of it being a massive demoralizing agent. I was talking with this guy about these things, and I'm not dismissive at all with him or on that topic. I just, like, I'm I don't I that's what I'm going to talk about is I'm the opposite of small, and I'm not really going to fully describe why I said it that way, but there's something else. And so that's the perspective from women. And I can avoid talking about a bunch of other related things, but I'm going to finish talking about relationships, and that, what do you call it, like, it's like the accident of birth, basically. Height or width or whatever is an accident of birth. And you can make the argument that somebody that's kind of innately fat, got fat parents, fat kid, they grow up fat. you could make an argument that that person can do something about it. Whatever other attributes, like you kind of can't do anything about your skin. You kind of can't do anything about a bunch of other things. You kind of can do something about some things. You absolutely can't do anything about your height. Just and so that's just one of those awkward facts of life and the experience of life that guys who are recognized by others as being short have have a perspective. So anyhow, I want to veer off of that, and I want to continue into relationships though. So that's an uncontestable fact. I'm just going to move on from that. So I'm going to talk about the fact that women select. And so we're talking about humans as an animalistic kind of concept. So you can bring it forward to today being like when women say yes, right? We've never lived in a culture in the history of humanity where that's never been the case. Never. I mean, you can make an argument that, oh, sometime in the past it's some others, but whatever civilization you want to bring up, whatever culture you want to bring up, it's dead. And it's dead because of this kind of shit. And it's that women have always been the ones that have made the choices for mating. And it's pretty straightforward to understand. You could say something like, well, what's the extreme of a woman not having choice? It's rape. And this is why I was saying that this is pretty adult, right? So there are people that think that, in the past, before civilization, men would run around carrying women off and raping them, and that's how we have children, and that's just how it's done. It's like, no, that's never, ever, ever been the case, ever. And the reason that's not the case is, I mean, you can make an argument that before humans had the ability to properly learn, maybe that kind of thing happened. But I'm talking about humans. I'm not talking about recent human civilization. You can go 10,000 years ago. That's fine. But even back then, why? Well, I care about my mother. I care about my sister. I care about my daughter. Somebody comes along and even accosts her, and I don't like that, and she doesn't like that. That bastard's dead. Right? You want to pull away all the fabric of the niceties of civilization. Somebody looks at who I care about the wrong way. That motherfucker's gonna die. Right there. That's how it works. That's how the most brutal, uncivilized version of humanity, where they would be perfectly capable of running around raping. That's the counter. Is you fuck with mine, you die. You get a gang to come and fuck with mine, I have a gang, right? And the thing with men is, and this is actually relevant to all this, the thing is with men is we're at a permanent, essentially something like a permanent ceasefire. And women can't comprehend this concept. Whatever world that women live in is full of weird rapey fantasies. And that's only when they forget that the men around them, under their normal conditions, would probably murder to protect them, even for strangers. And we don't quite live in that world anymore. We don't. There are places where that is still the case. And there's still selection pressures in place that have women appreciate having a big strong boyfriend for whatever reason. They often, you can, it is a good argument to say that women are smart and aren't fooled by any of that animalistic nonsense. That's fine. Then that means that women are just playing up to the fact that they'll be taken care of by big strong men, that they can play damsel and every man will come around and help them. That's an easy way to get through life. So, right? If women aren't animalistic and they're smart, then absolutely they're going to be smart and take advantage of that. No problem. So you've got this weird thing where big, strong men get selected by women, and it's not by the choice of the man as such. Plenty of other shit at play. But in terms of just the raw biology of size, a lot of that stuff is left over. The runt mentality, and this is completely absent of bullying or something like that. So this is just a guy who's of a different height, comes into whatever environment, they'll just beat themselves up. And the fact is, women will act differently around them and might just very coldly outright reject them. And men have this habit of we understand our value a little bit more coldly than women do. Women are idealistic and think that they're an 11, and men want to aim for what they think they're qualified for, and they see the competition, and then they judge themselves accordingly, and all this kind of bullshit. There's an entire backstory with that, and it's why pretty girls are approached by assholes. And there are reasons for that, and I totally don't want to get into that right now because I'm already veering way off topic. So one of the I still want to talk about men, and I still want to talk about height. So one of the tools that weak appearing, weak of personality, weak of body, small and short men have, one of the tools that they have is something akin, like the term would colloquially and rudely be called the sneaky fucker, which is they play nice guy, they play like bestest best friend, the purse carrier, the emotional, the pillow that gets cried on, the shoulder, the that one of those guys, right? He's not gay, but he's a little weak guy that has a bunch of girls as friends. Now he's probably in love with whomever. I mean, I think before guys figure anything out, they're kind of like that. And one of a strategy of little guys is to use that as a vector, not to be all impressive in terms of just having a massive stature and have something in women like them, maybe instinctively because of that. It's to play another angle where it's not necessarily intellect, but often, but it's emotional, and there's just another side of things. The reason it's called a sneaky fucker is because it's based around normally I'd look this kind of stuff up and there would be a presentation or something, whatever, but it's a fish that pretends to be female, and it pretends to be female because it's one of the little runty ones, and it actually gets in the way, and it sneaks by when the gigantic territorial ones are like guarding their harem, and it kind of sneaks in, and it like, I remember one story where it would sandwich itself between the female and the huge male, and it would be the one that could actually do the procreation. I know nothing. I don't care. But there's this notion of this other kind of guy. But I'm not imagining a little guy that's using that kind of strategy or who's thinking of themselves or the world like that. I'm just thinking of a guy who's fairly typical, but doesn't have the physical advantage that the majority of women in that case his culture would just naturally be attracted to. And there's I mean, there's a woman for every man and a man for every woman. Hopefully, right? Like supposedly, but every woman dreams way the hell past herself, like so unrealistically past herself that it's unbelievable, and it's just gotten worse. And that's why more and more women aren't finding love, and they're staying single for longer, and they're having children later because they've been princesses for far too long. And the more and more experimentation a woman gets into, further and further in life, is the more and more she's going to feel like she's settled for some guy, because she'll have experienced a lot and be able to dream even bigger and bigger. You know, when that billionaire doesn't come along and sweep her off her feet and rescue her, and she has to settle for some schmuck that's just, you know, that works 10-hour days. These this kind of guy is just kind of like they're can't get in with the advantages that other guys just kind of have. Okay, so that's part of the self-esteem problem that he was talking about, right? Is this entire kind of problem with relationships that he's got, and he's not one of the types that will go. I mean, men have insults for little guys, but he's not like that. He's highly naturally intelligent and works on it, but he's not lowering himself in his mind to prey off of the friendship aspect of things, to put on this guise to play the game that way. He doesn't want to do that kind of thing. So he's kind of screwed. And so he and I were talking about not just that. He was talking about, you know, he was talking about things in terms of how size is kind of terrible because of relationship standards, let's say. And it's kind of like weird one-sided standards. I remember, the internet's a wonderful place. So who cares about crediting anything to anyone, because they're just cool ideas. So something goes like, you know, you look at a woman's dating profile and it'll all be like, he's got to make, and it's got like a dollar value, and it's got a height, and it's just all these wonderful dreams that she has. And like, how could that ever possibly happen ever in a million years, when somebody with that set of standards would also have standards equivalent, and that may well be way the hell over her head. And so it's like, she can have all these standards in mind, but unless she actually improves herself, she's just, all she's doing is sitting and dreaming really big. And so some of these small guys, they have an equivalent. Men are way more realistic about themselves, and they'll work on themselves in certain ways. And so that's something he was doing. So he was talking about his self-esteem. Yeah. And I told him that because he could see me, and he, like, men understand one another from a physical perspective pretty easily. And so one of the reasons he was able to talk about this kind of stuff is because, I mean, it's really obvious that I'm way the fuck bigger than him. Like, it's, you ever met one of those like really big guys, like really, really huge guys, like 7 feet tall, 300 pounds, and they're the nicest, sweetest guys ever. They're just chill, so cool. So they're not like amazing with the ladies or anything like. They're just like, yeah, they're just nice guys, because they just don't have to play any of the damn games with anyone ever. It's, every guy will never have to. There's just no competition for one man to look at that and go, well, I'm tough like you. Like, no, you're not. Just no, you're not. You're just no. It's so obvious that you don't need to have that. So the really really big guy is kind of just outside of the little games that other guys have, because that it is just so well understood that they're exempt from this tension. So they don't feel it. Maybe they've never felt it in their entire life, and they're totally oblivious to any of these problems. And that's often the case, and that's why he was talking to me about this kind of stuff. Um, yeah, spreading awareness, whatever. And there is something like that between other guys. There's something like that between me and him, where we weren't. There was no tension in that sense. He wasn't comparing himself to me as such, but because there was an absolute, undeniable recognition in a difference in perspective because of size. He was sharing his side of stuff, and I decided to step in and share a bit of my side of stuff, which was, I'm big, and everybody around me knows it, and everybody around me knows it so well that they're scared. And I don't know how to explain. I'm gonna share a story or two or three. And the presence I exude is such that when people are nervous, I'm so hyper aware of that I've become self-conscious, and I've become extremely nervous about being big and in the way. So I told this guy, you know, being big means I worry about being in the way. And it's something he never thought about. He just thought, you know, women like big guys. I wish I was a big guy because I want the women. That's, of course, right? He's a guy. And I told him that basically there's a downside. Maybe there's a middle ground somewhere. But not only have I been big and hyper aware of it, I've grown so something, and this is a thing that I'm just not going to describe, that it just ends up amplifying the fear. And the reason I wanted to talk about any of this, and I'm already regretting the way I said a lot of stuff, but it's not like I've lied or anything. Maybe I just haven't been very articulate. So I was walking down the street, and this happened. It had to have happened more than a couple of times. I've actually had people cross the street rather than walk past me. And I only really notice well after the fact, most of the time. And it's just like one of those things I wouldn't normally pick up on, because there's all kinds of reasons somebody crosses the street. You know, they need to be over there for some reason, whatever the hell. And because I'm big and I'm chill, it's not because I'm not so big that I'm exempt from the games, but I was big enough and I happen to just not care. So I'm very aloof from a lot of those, I don't know. I'm not like that kind of guy. So I don't tend to notice a lot of things right away in terms of people's response to my size, like in real time in this particular case. But I've been noticing it a little bit more. And the other day, I had a woman. So you know how you're walking, and there's like the 2 or 3 light post distances that you're away, and you're trying to like figure out where that person's going to be walking, and you're like, kind of like, now normally what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to walk on the right hand side of the sidewalk, and that's how you know you're going to pass that way. Now I'm big enough that I actually kind of have to turn sideways half the time, depending on how much stuff is on either side of us, which is annoying. So I've got to do things like, you know, you've got somebody who's walking a dog. The correct thing for them to do is to actually position, is to move the leash and the dog such that they are positioned between the dog and another person. So this is a person with the dog, and this is the dog. And if we're walking like this, that's no good because the dog is gonna go sniff, bark at, whatever the heck. So you have to, that person has to move the dog to the other side so that we pass. Now I have to do that with like grocery bags or something like that. It's just kind of like, I've started doing that just to give a little bit more space and stuff like that. And so I'm approaching this woman, and she like couldn't quite figure out what side she was on. Like she wasn't moving, she was that far away, but there was enough of a space on the left that I decided to just very adamantly move all the way over to the left and just like make it absolutely clear, right? And she didn't just, she like, as I was approaching, she stepped onto the street, gave me this look, and it was like this hostile look. And it was really confused. I had that moment when I was going to stop and like ask her why she just did that. But I mean, I let it go. And you know, some time passes, and I was walking a kind of a wide route to get to a convenience store just for the sake of just going out. I will go to this one place. And the same, almost the same thing kind of happens again. I'm just walking up, and it's the same woman, and because we're just walking in the same direction, and because I'm tall and I've got longer legs, we've got this really awkward thing where it's like, if only you'd slow the hell down, I'd walk past you and we're good. But little people speed up so that they're just fast enough that I'm like stuck behind them. So I guess it's like a driver stuck behind a cyclist or something. It's just like, just come on, let me. And it's just, she was kind of doing that. And, you know, until she's like looking behind her and then does a little jog. It's like, the fuck? And that happened again. And I'm like, and because that was a fear reaction that she was giving. And I think maybe, she's just racist because of the way I look. And I say that for specific reasons that I won't get into. But, and I think that might actually be the first proper time I've actually experienced that. I've been called names before. It's not really meaningful though. I had one woman make fun of me and I chased her home and punched her nose out. That was a long time ago when I was an idiot kid. Oh yeah, I hit a woman. Yes. Of course she wasn't immune to that. Why? Why? Back in the 80s, that kind of thing. Like, she was bullying me, I guess, and I went berserk. I don't do that anymore, hopefully. So there's my dark past when I was a little kid. And so she did that a second time and she was with somebody, and they both went for like a jog. After looking back at me, they went for a jog, and I was legit trying to power walk to get the hell past them. So I'm like, great, I scared the fuck out of these little people. That kind of sucks. I'm self-conscious about that. And it's been over at half an hour, so I'm not really sure what the point of any of this was. I'll play it back and see if I made a point that was useful at all, or if this is just too embarrassing and personal, and if I should just leave this and not publish it ever. But yeah, I mean, it's really the first time that I've not just struggled with my own self-awareness of my size and wanting to be out of the way, and that actually makes me clumsy when I do it on purpose, versus people legitimately being scared. I mean, not just like it's weird that you're so quiet and so big, but like holy shit, wanting to cross the street or jog to get the hell away. Like I'm not. I have earplugs in. I don't care, and I'm looking at what I'm looking at, and I'm not mean, and I'm not any of that stuff. But to have somebody just be like that, and then that makes me think back to all of these other times in my life when people are act in certain ways, when certain things have happened. And do I need to like take acting lessons or something? Like how do you normal folk, like, is there a body language thing I'm not picking up on? I'm just neutral and relaxed, and I don't want to interact with people on the streets, so I'm like ignoring people. Is that scary or something? Do I need to be? I'm pretty sure if I was big and smiley and like engaging people all around me, they'd be really weirded out. So is there some middle ground that I'm missing? Anyhow, I've rambled enough. Hopefully this isn't too embarrassing / useless.